What if your boring job was the only thing standing between a mysterious, dangerous man and a bullet? I was just a waitress, drowning in my mom's leftover medical debt, my degree in criminal psychology collecting dust. It felt like a useless party trick, until he started showing up. Antonio Bandini. He was a Friday night regular, the kind of man who radiated quiet danger, and wore suits that cost more than my car. But I saw things. My training made me see the cracks in his armor, the tells everyone else missed. And then, I saw the men who were hunting him. I had to make a choice. One quiet warning. I thought that would be the end of it. Instead, that single decision shattered my life. I went from serving cheap wine to being a prisoner in a multi-million-dollar penthouse. I saw violence I can never unsee. I was forced to confront the chilling gap between the justice in my textbooks and the brutal, bloody reality of Antonio's world. And then they came for my family. They took my sister. In that moment, I had to decide, remain the victim, the frightened girl in the tower, or finally use my training and become something else entirely. This isn't just a story about falling for the bad guy. It's about what happens when your entire moral compass is destroyed, and you're forced to build a new one from the shattered pieces, just to survive. Have you ever been forced to make a choice where there was no right answer? Let me know in the comments. This story is a look into a world that's hidden right beneath our feet, and it's wild. Hit that subscribe button and stick around. We are just getting started, and trust me, the real world is all about the shades of grey. The crash of plates was Carmen's signature laugh. She skidded to a stop by the wine station, 4 heavy dinners somehow balanced on one arm. Table 6 is screaming for more palm, she announced, her voice cutting through the clatter. And your boyfriend at 12 is asking for you. Specifically. I didn't even look up from polishing the endless supply of glasses. My stomach did that stupid, familiar flip. Antonio Bandini. For 3 solid months, he'd been my Friday night enigma. Why a man who looked like he owned half of Chicago chose to eat at the Golden Fork, a decent but hardly 5-star joint, was beyond me. He tips like a king, Carmen added, nudging me. And he's not exactly hard to look at. What is the issue, Elena? The issue? The issue was that every instinct, every scrap of my criminal psychology training, went on high alert when he was near. It wasn't a scream-in-your-face kind of danger. It was quieter. It was the whisper of heavy secrets, of a life lived behind walls. He was a walking, breathing behavioral anomaly I couldn't decode. No problem, I lied. I smoothed my apron, a pointless gesture, and checked my reflection in the chrome coffee machine. My blonde hair was mostly still in its work bun. A few strands had escaped. At 26, I de-perfected the competent but approachable mask. In this job, tips paid the bills, and people only tipped servers they liked. The dining room was at peak Friday chaos. I saw the anniversary couples, the tense business dinners, the loud groups letting off steam. I was good at this. Reading the room. Seeing the little power plays and unspoken dramas. But tonight felt off. The air was thick. It started around 10:30. A man in a charcoal suit, sharp and expensive, took table 8. He fit the usual high-end clientele. But he ordered 3 cognacs in an hour and hadn't sipped one. He just sat, spine rigid, checking his watch with a metronomic obsession. He wasn't waiting for a date. He was operating on a schedule. And his table, I realized with a jolt, had a perfect, unobstructed view of table 12. Antonio's table. The man's gaze kept sliding over there, not a direct stare, but a constant, peripheral check. It was professional. It was surveillance. Then I spotted the second one. At the bar. Mid-30s, maybe. His Italian leather shoes were worth my entire month's rent. He'd been nursing one whiskey for 45 minutes. His stool was angled perfectly. He could see the front door and, more importantly, the hallway to the kitchens. He kept adjusting his jacket, a telltale sign. He was carrying something heavy and awkward under his arm, something he didn't want anyone to bump into. The third man sealed it. He'd taken the small, undesirable table near the restrooms about 20 minutes ago. But it wasn't undesirable if you were monitoring the back exit. The staff exit. The exit I'd seen Antonio use every single Friday night. This one was younger, vibrating with a nervous energy he couldn't hide. Checking his phone. Straightening his fork. Tapping his thigh. My training wasn't just textbooks anymore. This was a clinical picture. Pre-action anxiety. Hypervigilance. Repetitive, self-soothing gestures. These men weren't here for dinner. They were here for a target. And their positions were coordinated. They were a team. They were all watching table 12. My God. Was I just being paranoid? My studies had made me jumpy before, seeing threats in shadows. But this was too clean. The triangulation. The timing. The shared focus. Elena. Move. Carmen's voice snapped me back. Your Italian prince is waiting. I grabbed the ridiculously expensive Barolo he always ordered. My hands were shaking. I walked toward table 12, my heart hammering against my ribs. He looked up. His eyes, the color of a storm cloud, did their usual sweep of me. Antonio Bandini was control personified. From his perfect tie to his folded napkin. He was 6'2" of coiled power, wrapped in a suit that was probably handmade in Rome. Good evening, Mr. Bandini, I said. My voice, thank God, came out steady. The usual. His accent was a low rumble. European, but impossible to pin down. It wasn't a request. It was a command. As I poured the deep red wine, my brain was on fire, cataloguing everything. He always sat facing the room, back to a solid wall. His eyes never stopped moving, a constant, measured scan. The watch on his wrist was a serious piece of hardware, and he checked it with purpose, not habit. And the bulge under his left shoulder, it wasn't a wallet. You're tense tonight, Elena. His voice was so quiet, just for me. Something on your mind. Before I could form a lie, I saw it. The man at table 8. He had his phone to his ear, whispering. I leaned in, pretending to check the wine label, straining to hear. 2345, he whispered. Back exit. All units in place. My blood went cold. 2345, it was 2330. 15 minutes. The back exit. Antonio's exit. Everything's in position. It all slammed together. 3 men. Coordinated. Timed. All focused on him. This was an ambush. Or an execution. In 15 minutes, Antonio Bandini would walk out that back door, and straight into a trap. My hands were trembling so hard I almost spilled the wine. Every survival instinct I had screamed at me to walk away. Finish my shift. Go home. This was not my business. This was a world I had no part in. But I couldn't. I couldn't just watch him walk to his death. What if I was wrong? What if this was all in my head? But what if I was right? Mr. Bandini, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I leaned in, moving his water glass. I need you to listen to me. Do not react. I think you are in extreme danger. Something is planned for 2345. His hand, which had been reaching for his glass, froze. Those grey eyes snapped into focus, all pretense of a calm dinner gone. The air around us crackled. "Explain," he breathed. "Three men," I whispered, the words tumbling out. "Table 8, the bar, the restroom table. They are watching you. They are showing classic pre-action anxiety, coordinated positioning. I just heard table 8 confirm 23:45 at the back exit. They are waiting for you." His expression didn't change, but his entire body shifted. He became a weapon. "You're sure of this observation?" I wasn't sure of anything. My heart was going to explode. "No. But yes. My degree is in behavioral analysis. They are exhibiting all the markers. They are a surveillance and assault team." Slowly, he reached inside his jacket. Not for the bulge, but for his phone. A few rapid, silent taps. He placed it face down. "Done?" "Done with what?" A shadow of a smile, sharp and cold. "Insurance." It happened so fast. It was like a movie, but silent and terrifyingly real. His phone on the table buzzed once. Instantly, three men I hadn't even noticed in the restaurant stood up. They had been shadows. One was a busboy. One was a customer at a different table. They moved. The man at table 8 was still checking his watch when one of the shadows grabbed him from behind. His face was slammed into his plate. An arm was twisted at an angle that just wasn't humanly possible. His phone skidded away. The man at the bar saw it. He tried to run. He made it 2 steps before he was simply gone, vanishing behind a wall of 2 of Antonio's men. The diners just looked up, annoyed at the commotion, not realizing what they were seeing. The third man, the nervous one by the restrooms, actually bolted for the back exit. The one he was supposed to be guarding. I heard a muffled scuffle and a heavy thud from the corridor. He didn't make it. And through it all, Antonio just sat there. He calmly took a sip of his wine. He looked like he'd just sent back a cold steak. "We are leaving," he said, his voice flat. He stood, dropping a crisp $100 bill on the table. "Now? I can't just. I have a shift. Your shift is over." His hand was on the small of my back. Not a request. A steering. An absolute, undeniable pressure guiding me to the main entrance. "Believe me," he said, his voice low, "you do not want to be here when the police arrive to sort this out." My brain wasn't working. We walked right through the dining room. I saw Carmen's face, her mouth open in confusion as I left with a customer. I wanted to tell her I was okay, but Antonio's pace was relentless. A black sedan was idling at the curb. The engine was already running. This wasn't a coincidence. "Get in." He held the back door open. My training, my common sense, every rational thought was screaming no. This is how girls disappear. This is how you end up in a river. But what choice did I have? I just saw what his insurance did. Saying no didn't feel like an option. The car smelled like new leather and something expensive and spicy. Antonio slid in beside me, keeping a formal distance that somehow took up all the air. The driver, a mountain of a man, pulled into traffic without a word. Where are we going?" My voice was a pathetic, shaky thing. "Somewhere safe." He was studying me again, with those storm-gray eyes. "You need to be somewhere safe while we figure this out." "Figure what out?" "What just happened?" He looked out the window for a long moment. "You just saved my life, Elena. And that makes things complicated." We drove in silence. I recognized my neighborhood, then we passed it, heading north into the parts of Chicago I only saw in magazines. The safe place was a penthouse. A gleaming tower that touched the clouds. The lobby had more men in dark suits. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress. It is temporary, he said as we rode a silent, private elevator. Until we know who sent them and why. The apartment was breathtaking. Windows for walls, showing the entire city glittering below. But it was cold. No photos. No clutter. Just expensive, sterile furniture. And two more men, standing by the hallway, who were definitely armed. This wasn't a refuge. It was a prison. I have to call my job, I stammered, digging for my phone. Carmen will be frantic, my manager. It's been handled. A woman emerged from a hallway. Mid-30s, impossibly elegant, with eyes that saw everything. I spoke with your supervisor. You have a severe case of food poisoning. You'll be out for several days. I just stared at her. Who are you? Sophia Romano. She offered a perfectly manicured hand. Mr. Bandini's assistant. I've prepared the guest room. There are clothes in your size. A new chill ran down my spine. How do you know my size? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We are very thorough, Miss Morrison. Thorough. They'd been researching me. How long? Why? I felt like a bug under a microscope. Antonio had already vanished into another room. An office. I saw screens, electronics, before the door shut. This way, Sophia said. The guest room was bigger than my entire apartment. Clothes were laid out on the bed. Designer labels. Things I couldn't afford in 1,000 years. How did you know? I asked, touching a cashmere sweater. How did you know to have this ready? Sophia paused at the door. Her professional mask was perfect. Mr. Bandini plans for every contingency, Miss Morrison. He has been aware of you for some time. Aware of me? The questions were piling up, threatening to drown me. She left, closing the door softly, and I was alone. I didn't sleep. I paced. Every creak, every muffled voice from the hall made me jump. This was it. I'd stumbled into a war. By morning, I was a wreck. Sophia appeared at 8, as if on schedule, with a tray. Coffee, pastries. Mr. Bandini will see you when you're ready, she said. And if I'm not? He will wait. That small, knowing smile again. But the longer you wait, Miss Morrison, the more questions you'll have. And the answers will only get harder. She was right. I found him in the office, surrounded by monitors showing security feeds from all over the city. He changed into jeans and a simple shirt, and he looked even more dangerous. Sleep? He asked, not turning. You can't be serious. That ghost of a smile. No. He swiveled in his chair to face me. The grey eyes were intense. Elena. How much do you really know about organized crime in this city? Only what everyone knows, I said, my voice shaking. That it's real. And that smart people stay away from it. A smart policy, he agreed. Unfortunately, it's no longer an option for you. Because I warned you. Because you witnessed Riccardo Torino's men try to kill me. And because you interfered, my people captured 2 of them alive. He stood, pouring coffee. He offered me a cup. Torino will not see you as an innocent bystander. He will assume you work for me. That makes you a target. He said it so calmly. A death sentence, delivered with a cup of coffee. For how long? Until Torino is no longer a problem. And how long, I whispered, will that be? Antonio's fingers brushed mine as I took the cup. His gaze was unblinking. That depends entirely on him. And on how quickly he understands that this war with my family can only end one way. Saturday morning, the reality hit me like a physical blow. I woke up in sheets that cost more than my rent, in a room I couldn't leave, guarded by men with guns. The panic attack slammed into me before I was even fully awake. My chest seized. I couldn't get air. The beautiful, elegant walls of the guest room started closing in, tilting. This wasn't a sanctuary. It was a cell. My hands shook, twisting in the expensive bedding, trying to find something real. My mind was just gone, cycling through every terrible scenario my psych training had ever covered. I was going to be disappeared. I'd be a statistic. A missing person file that gathers dust. No one would even know where to look for me. Miss Morrison. Sophia's voice, muffled through the heavy door. A soft knock. I have your breakfast. I forced myself to breathe. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 6. The rhythm Dr. Martinez taught me after Mom died. Back when my panic was about bills and funerals, not mob hits. I'm fine, I called out. My voice almost sounded normal. May I come in? It was a question, but it wasn't a choice. None of this was a choice. She entered with a silver tray. Coffee, fruit, pastries. She set it all down near the window, the stunning, terrifying window 40 stories above the ground. Mr. Bandini was called away this morning, she said, pouring coffee. Urgent business. Urgent business. That could mean anything from a stock trade to an execution. When can I go home? Her hands paused. Just for a second. The first crack I'd seen in her armor. That, she said carefully, depends on factors outside of our control. You mean it depends on whether Riccardo Torino tries to kill me again? Mr. Bandini will not allow that to happen. The certainty in her voice was absolute. But it wasn't comforting. It just meant my entire life now rested in the hands of a man I didn't know, a man who lived by a code that terrified me. I spent the day pacing. A caged animal in a luxury zoo. The art was priceless. The view was incredible. But it was a prison. Every door was locked or guarded. Every window was a sheer drop. By afternoon, the anxiety was eating me alive. I had to do something. I had to test the bars. I need some air, I told Sophia, finding her in the main living area. Just a walk. Around the building. Her expression was polite, neutral. I'm afraid that isn't possible, Miss Morrison. Then the lobby. Just the lobby. I feel like I'm suffocating. I understand this is difficult, but... No. You don't understand. The words just exploded out of me, raw and shaking. The hysteria I'd been fighting finally won. You don't understand what it's like to have your life torched because you did one decent thing. You don't know what it's like to be told you're a target because you warned someone. And you definitely don't know what it's like to be locked in a golden cage by the very man you saved. Sophia just stood there and took it. She didn't even blink. You are correct, she said, her voice quiet. I don't. But I do understand being trapped between impossible choices and very dangerous men. Something in her tone. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Past the perfect suit and the calm mask. Her eyes were old. They held shadows. How long? I asked. How long have you worked for him? 7 years. And in 7 years, how many hysterical waitresses have you had to manage? A tiny, sad smile touched her lips. You're the first, Miss Morrison. That didn't make me feel special. It made me feel like an anomaly. A problem he'd never had to solve before. Sunday, I tried to run. I waited. I heard Sophia leave for what she called errands. The guards at the elevator were watching for people coming in. I put on the nicest clothes from the closet, grabbed the purse that had been provided, and walked toward the elevator like I owned the place. I made it 3 floors down. The elevator just stopped. Between floors, the lights flickered. When the doors opened again, one of Antonio's men was standing there. "Miss Morrison," he said, his voice polite. "Mr. Bandini asked that I escort you back upstairs." The shame burned worse than the fear. I'd been caught. I'd acted like a stupid, scared kid. Antonio returned that night. The whole penthouse seemed to shrink, the air charged with his presence. He was in casual clothes again, which only made him look more imposing. "I heard you had an eventful day," he said. He was pouring a whiskey. I needed air. My voice was tight. "And you thought wandering around Chicago, while Riccardo Torino is actively hunting you, was a good idea?" "I thought maybe I could just go back to my life. Pretend this never happened." He turned, and those gray eyes pinned me. "Your normal life was over the second you warned me, Elena. So this is a punishment for doing the right thing." "This," he said, walking closer, "is protection. Because doing the right thing put you in the crosshairs of a man who doesn't care about right. My logical brain, the part that studied psychology, understood. But the part of me that was a prisoner just wanted to scream. "Tell me about your mother," he said. The question came out of nowhere. It threw me completely. "What?" Sophia mentioned her. "The medical debt. It's why you were waitressing, isn't it?" The old, familiar grief washed over me. "Lung cancer," I whispered, wrapping my arms around myself. 3 years. We tried everything. It didn't work. It just bankrupted us. And that's why you studied criminal psychology. It wasn't a question. You wanted to understand the kind of people who prey on the vulnerable. I'd never put it that way. But it was true. "Insurance companies and pharmaceutical giants," I said. "They aren't technically criminals, but they destroy lives all the same." I saw something flicker in his face. Recognition. "My mother died when I was 15, he said, his voice quiet, flat. "She was poisoned. By someone we trusted. Someone who sat at our dinner table." The admission was shocking. A piece of himself, offered in the sterile quiet of my prison. He was my father's cousin. He'd been selling information to our rivals for years. We never saw it. Not until it was too late. His knuckles were white on his glass. "She was sick for 3 days. The doctors had no idea. We only found out what it was during the autopsy." "Antonio. I'm so sorry. It taught me 2 things," he said, his gaze distant. "Never trust anyone completely. And always see the betrayal before it becomes fatal." It clicked. "That's why you were aware of me," I said. "That's why my psych degree mattered to you. You wanted someone who could see the tells. You saw a professional hit squad forming in a crowded restaurant, Elena. That's not a skill you learn serving pasta." I found myself studying him. Really studying him. The mask. The control. The constant vigilance. The pain he held so tightly. "You really don't trust anyone, do you?" "Trust is a luxury, Elena. I can't afford it." "That sounds incredibly lonely." He looked at me then, and for a second, the mask slipped. I saw the 15-year-old boy who watched his mother die. "Loneliness," he said, "is better than betrayal." I couldn't sleep. The conversation replayed in my head. The monster and the boy. At 3 a.m., I gave up and went for water. The apartment was dark, lit only by the city lights. He was there. Standing at the kitchen island. Fully dressed. 2 small cups of coffee were on the counter. You either, he asked. My head's too full. He pushed one of the cups toward me. It was thick, dark espresso in a delicate china cup. My mother used to make this for me, he said, his back still to me. When I had nightmares. The gesture was so human. So intimate. It completely disarmed me. We stood there in the dark, in silence, drinking coffee. The city lights were a million miles away. For the first time since Friday, I wasn't afraid of him. The men who, your mother, I asked quietly. What happened to them? My father dealt with them. All of them. After I turned 18. And the cousin. Antonio turned, and his smile in the darkness was a terrifying, beautiful thing. That one, he said, was mine. 2 weeks. I'd been in the gilded cage for 2 weeks. I was learning the rhythms of his world. The way men fell silent when he entered a room. The quiet, absolute authority. The power that moved in glances and gestures. When he finally said I could go back to work, it wasn't freedom. It was just a different kind of cage. Vincent will drive you, he stated. It wasn't a suggestion. We were at breakfast. He will wait outside. Marco will be inside the restaurant, at a table, for your entire shift. You do not leave the building. For any reason. I just stirred my coffee. What about Carmen? My co-workers. They'll see a guy sitting there for 6 hours. They'll ask questions. Marco is discreet. They'll think he's a lonely customer with a routine. Then he dropped the other bomb. I acquired a controlling interest in the Golden Fork 2 days ago. I stared at him. You bought the restaurant. It's a sound investment. You bought it to watch me. Your protection, he said, his eyes on his paperwork, is a secondary benefit. He couldn't even admit it. He couldn't admit he was doing this for me. It was always business. Always strategy. Walking back into the Golden Fork was surreal. It was like visiting a museum of my old life. Same tables, same lights. But I wasn't the same. I felt like a ghost. Carmen hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. Food poisoning, huh? She said, pulling back and studying my face. You look amazing. Like, secret spa weekend amazing, not praying to the porcelain god amazing. Guilt twisted in my stomach. Just caught up on rest. And the manicure, she asked, grabbing my hand. And the highlights. Come on, Elena, who is he? Sophia had arranged it all. Maintaining appearances, she'd called it. Now, it just felt like a brand. My sister, I lied. She surprised me. The lie tasted like ash. Marco showed up at 7, on the dot. He took a corner table, the one with perfect sight lines. He ordered an appetizer, a main, and a dessert, and ate them all with painstaking slowness. He was good. He just looked like a sad businessman. Antonio didn't come. Not the first night, or the second. By the third night, a Thursday, I'd almost convinced myself he'd gotten bored. Then he walked in. The whole room's energy shifted. He took his usual table. But he was different. He was tense. The usual calm was gone, replaced by a vibrating energy. His eyes were scanning the room far more than usual. Mr. Bandini. I walked over with his wine. Elena. The way he said my name. It always did that. Have you noticed anything? He asked, his voice low. Anyone new? Anyone asking about you? My heart rate kicked up. What kind of questions? Questions about your schedule. Your routine. I thought back. There was a guy yesterday. Said he was from the health department. Carmen talked to him, but he was asking about employee shifts, about our layout. Antonio's expression went dark. Describe him. Mid-30s. Nice suit. He had an accent. I couldn't place it. Mexican, he asked. The specific word froze me. Maybe. Yes. Why? He didn't answer. He just pulled out his phone. A fast text. A second later, Marco sad, lonely businessman Marco was at our table, his face hard. We have to go, Antonio said. He was already standing. Now? I can't just. I'm in the middle of. Carmen will be fine, he cut me off, his voice iron. Your life is more important than her dinner service. The back parking lot was dark, a few streetlights flickering. We were halfway to his car. The pop was sharp. The back window of a car next to us exploded into a spiderweb of glass. Time just stopped. Antonio's hand clamped on my wrist like a vice. He yanked me behind a huge delivery truck. More shots. Pop, pop, pop. Marco was suddenly there, weapon drawn, firing back into the darkness. He was calm. He was trained. Stay down. Antonio yelled. He had his own gun out. He was shielding me with his body. The fact that he was armed shouldn't have been a surprise, but seeing it was different. And the most terrifying part. I felt safe behind him. It was over in maybe 90 seconds. It felt like a lifetime. Then, silence. 3 men were down in the lot. Marco was on his earpiece, speaking fast, his gun still up, scanning. Are you hurt? Antonio's hands were on me, checking my arms, my torso. Professional. Detached. I don't think so. My voice was a whisper. Were they trying to kill me? No, he said, his voice grim. They were trying to take you. That's very different. The distinction made me sick. Vincent arrived with 2 more SUVs. Our cleanup crew. They worked with a horrifying efficiency. In 20 minutes, the bodies were gone. The blood was gone. It was just a parking lot again. We went to his house this time, not the penthouse. It was a fortress, but it felt more like a home. He poured 2 whiskeys. His hands weren't even shaking. That, he said, handing me a glass, was Ricardo's answer. For the men we captured at the restaurant. He's made an alliance. The Sinaloa cartel. My blood ran cold. They operate differently than we do, he continued. My world has rules. Boundaries. Civilians are avoided. The cartel. They don't have those rules. They see you as leverage. The whiskey burned. So what now? Now, he said, we end the threat. He said it like he was planning a business merger. But his other hand, the one not holding the glass, rested on my knee. His thumb was drawing small, grounding circles. Antonio. Yes? Thank you. He set his glass down. He turned to face me on the sofa. Those grey eyes were searching mine, looking for something. You saved me first, Elena. This is just balancing the books. Is that all? I whispered. Just balancing the books. The control in his face slipped. Just a little. I saw the man, not the boss. No, he said. He leaned in. I didn't move. His hand came up, cupping my jaw. I leaned into his touch. And when he kissed me, I finally understood. I'd never felt safe with anyone in my entire life. Not really. Not until this moment, with this man, who had just been in a gunfight. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was raw. It was desperation and hunger and 2 weeks of terror finally breaking. It was an admission. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. He rested his forehead against mine. This, he whispered, complicates things. My entire life is complicated. Not like this. His voice was rough. Not when, caring about you, gives my enemies a weapon to use against me. The admission hung there. A confession. Then don't let them, I whispered back. His smile was sharp, dangerous, and all for me. No, he said. Maybe we don't. 3 weeks. 3 weeks since I'd warned him. I was starting to understand his world. The silent communications. The deference. The constant, thrumming baseline of power and vigilance. And the terrifying part. It was starting to feel normal. I was watching him in his study. He was reviewing security reports, his tie gone, sleeves rolled up. It was so domestic. My chest ached. This man, this dangerous, cold man, was becoming the only thing that made sense. You're staring, he said. He didn't even look up. I'm observing. It's different. That ghost of a smile. And what are you observing, Dotteressa? That you're only relaxed in here. Your shoulders, they are different in this room. He finally put the papers down. He leaned back. This room is the only place I control all the variables. And you trust the security. He paused. His gaze softened. And I trust you. The words landed with the weight of gold. Trust. In his world, that was everything. It was the rarest currency. Antonio, I said, moving to stand beside his chair. He reached up, his fingers tracing my jaw, so gentle. I never, he said, his voice rough, intended for this. For you. For me to what? To matter. His other hand was in my hair. He pulled me down. His mouth found mine. This kiss was different. It wasn't the desperate clash after the parking lot. This was deep. This was a surrender. When he lifted me onto his desk, scattering a week's worth of reports, I didn't care. When his hands moved over me, worshipful and demanding at the same time, I melted. When he whispered my name against my throat like a prayer, I knew. This was it. This changed everything. We made love with a desperation that had been simmering for weeks. It wasn't just sex. It was an acknowledgement. In this room, in this fortress, he wasn't the crime boss. He was just Antonio. And I wasn't the waitress he was protecting. I was just Elena. Afterward, we were tangled on the leather sofa. His fingers were drawing lazy, idle patterns on my shoulder. I had never felt safer in my entire life. Stay, he murmured against my hair. Don't go back to the guest room. I'm not going anywhere. But the morning destroyed it. The morning brought the real world crashing back in. I was in the kitchen. I was making coffee. I was happy. Then Sophia appeared. She wasn't carrying a breakfast tray. She was carrying a manila folder. And her face, her professional mask was gone. Replaced by something cold. You need to see this, she said. She placed the folder on the marble counter. I opened it. Crime scene photos. Yellow tape. Blood. A young man, sprawled on the floor of a cheap apartment. Who is this? I asked, but I knew him. I knew him. Jimmy Torino. 24. A delivery driver for Markelly's Kitchen. Markelly's. The place I worked before the fork. Jimmy. Sweet, smiling Jimmy. He always asked how my classes were going. He brought me soup once when I was sick. Why are you showing me this? He was eliminated, Sophia said, her voice flat, 2 days ago. On Mr. Bandini's orders. The folder slipped. The photos scattered across the floor. Jimmy's smiling driver's license photo stared up at me. What? Mr. Torino was selling information. About your old job. Your routines. Your apartment. He was just a kid, I whispered. He was broke. Student loans. The information he sold was for an abduction attempt. Yours. He wouldn't have known. He couldn't have known what it was for. He sold detailed files on your movements, Miss Morrison. And on your sister's college in Milwaukee. He knew exactly what he was selling, and to whom. The room was spinning. My sister. He sold information on Jessica. Antonio had him killed. He'd killed sweet, harmless Jimmy. Where is he? Meetings. He should be back. I didn't wait. I ran. I found him in his study, on the phone, speaking in rapid, angry Italian. He looked up, saw my face, and his expression hardened. Ti chiamo dopo. He hung up. Elena. What's wrong? Jimmy Torino. His face went blank. The mask slammed down. That was all the confirmation I needed. You saw the report. You killed him. I eliminated a threat. He was a kid. He was my friend. He was a paid informant, Antonio said, his voice deadly calm, who was selling you to the cartel. He didn't know. It doesn't matter what he knew. The result would have been the same. Your abduction. Or your death. I backed away. This was the man I'd slept with. This was the man who killed people. You're talking about him like he's a balance sheet. He was a person. And you, he said, are still alive. That is what matters. To you. Not to me. A dangerous light entered his eyes. Would you prefer I let him? Let them take you. Torture you for information about me. About my family. I would prefer you found another way. Talk to him. Paid him off. Anything but murdering him. This isn't your textbook, Elena. In my world, there are no other ways. There are no second chances. There is survival, and there is death. He made his choice. The coldness of it. The absolute certainty. It was horrifying. I'd fallen in love with a monster. I can't, I whispered. I can't do this. Can't do what? This? Be with this. Be with you. He endangered you. And you executed him. I stared at him, the man from last night, the man who had been so tender, gone. Replaced by this. This killer. Then you are more naive, he said, his voice flat, than I believed. That broke me. I'm leaving. No, you're not. You can't keep me here. I can't let you leave. Not when you're this emotional. Not when you're still a target. You'll get yourself killed. Then that's my choice. I turned. I walked out. Out of the study. Out of the penthouse. Sophia was in the hall. She saw my face. She didn't move to stop me. But as I jabbed the button for the elevator, I heard her speaking urgently into her phone. The guards in the lobby just nodded. They let me walk right out the front door. I didn't look back. By nightfall, I was on a Greyhound bus. I was watching Chicago's skyline disappear. My sister, Jessica, was in Detroit. Grad school. A normal life. A safe life. I just had to get to her. I stared out the window for 4.5 hours, my mind a blank, screaming void. I'd saved a monster. I'd fallen for him. And I'd become part of his world, long enough to get someone I knew killed. Jessica met me at the station. She saw my face and just hugged me. Bad breakup, she asked gently as we got in her car. Something, I whispered, like that. I settled into her tiny spare room. I told myself I was safe. I told myself I'd made the right choice. I told myself the nightmare was over. I was wrong. Detroit was supposed to be safe. It was supposed to be normal. For 2 days, it almost was. Jessica's tiny apartment, all college debt and ramen noodles, felt like a different universe. We talked about her thesis. We planned to watch a stupid movie. I was making coffee on Tuesday morning. I was almost starting to breathe again. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Weird, she muttered. Unknown number. She answered. Hello. I watched her face. Annoyance. Confusion. And then, stark, absolute terror. The phone just dropped from her hand. It clattered on the cheap linoleum. Jess? Jess, what is it? They know, she whispered, her voice shaking. They know you're here. They said. She started to cry. Elena, they said they are coming for both of us. The coffee mug slipped from my hand. It shattered. The sound was too loud. Who, Jess? Who was on the phone? I don't know. An accent. Spanish, maybe. He knew your name. He knew about Mom's bills. He knew my thesis topic. He said, if you don't go with them, they'll take me. Antonio was right. I hadn't escaped. I'd just painted a new target. And this time, it was on my sister. Pack, I said, my voice suddenly calm and cold. Pack a bag. Now? Elena, what is going on? I will explain. I promise. Just grab your laptop, your wallet. The apartment door didn't open. It exploded. Wood and plaster blew into the room. 3 men. Black tactical gear. Weapons up. They moved like soldiers. Jessica Morrison, the lead one, barked. The accent. You come. No. I shoved myself in front of her. My hands were up. Take me. She has nothing to do with this. I'm the one you want. He smiled. He had a gold tooth. We want you to watch, Pewter. To understand what happens when you run. Before I could even scream, one of them had Jess. He twisted her arm. He clamped a cloth over her face. She fought. For maybe 10 seconds. Then she went limp in his arms. 48 hours, Gold Tooth said to me. His eyes were dead. You go back to Chicago. You tell Bandini we have his girl's sister. He brings us what we want. Or she is gone. What do you want? Everything, he spat. Everything your mafia boyfriend stole. And they were gone. They just vanished. Leaving me in the wreckage of Jessica's life, the chemical smell of the sedative hanging in the air. I used her landline. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial. He answered on the first ring. Elena. They have her. They have Jessica. Silence. Just for a beat. Then his voice changed. It became the voice from the restaurant. The voice of command. Where are you? Detroit. Her apartment. They said 48 hours. They said they want territory. I'm already in the car. Send me the address. Antonio, I'm so sorry, I ran. We will discuss your decision later, he cut me off. His voice was cold as steel. Right now, we get your sister back. He arrived in 4 hours, not 6. He didn't come alone. He came with an army. Black SUVs filled Jessica's quiet street. Men in suits, all with earpieces, were setting up something. It looked like a command center. He found me on the couch. I was just staring at the splintered door. "Tell me everything," he said. He didn't sit close. He just watched me. I told him. Every word. The accent. The gold tooth. The chemical smell. The way they moved. "Sinaloa," he said, his face hard. "Ricardo's new friends. Can you get her back?" He looked at me, and I saw that flicker of something, not vulnerability. Certainty. "I have never lost anyone I am protecting, Elena. I will not start with your sister." The next 12 hours were a blur. It was terrifying. His team wasn't just muscle. They were intelligence. They hacked traffic cams. They intercepted calls. They talked to local contacts. By evening, they had her. An abandoned auto plant on the east side. 8 guards. Automatic weapons. Standard cartel protocol, Antonio said, pointing to a satellite image on a laptop. They'll be expecting a full frontal assault. An army. So what are we going to do? We will give them the opposite. We will give them precision. And psychology. He turned to me. He had that look. The calculating look. "This is why I need you, Elena. Your training. I need you to tell me how they think. You want me to help plan this. You're the expert. My men know mafia tactics. Cartel soldiers are different. You studied this. Different motivations. Different fears. Tell me how they will react under pressure." He was right. I had written papers on it. The differences in hierarchy, loyalty, and the use of terror. And my sister's life was on the line. This wasn't a textbook anymore. This was the final exam. "They are not loyal," I said, the words coming fast. I was the psychologist again. I was the expert. "Not like your men. They are motivated by fear. Fear of their boss. Fear of the rival cartels. Fear of you. That fear makes them reckless. How do we use it? You create chaos. Multiple threats. Small, simultaneous. Make them think they are surrounded, that they are being cut off from their support. Their command structure will break. They'll panic. They'll make mistakes." "And Jessica?" he asked, his voice quiet. "They won't kill her," I said, trying to believe it. "Not at first. She's their only leverage. But if they think it's over, if they think they are all going to die, they'll kill her just to deny you the win. Then we make sure they never think that. Or," I said, a dark thought forming, "you make them believe that cooperating with you is the only way they survive the night." Antonio's gaze was intense. He was seeing me. Not the waitress. Not the frightened girl. He was seeing his new weapon. "Elena," he said, his voice soft. "There is something else. About Jimmy Torino." My stomach clenched. "What?" "My team finished the data recovery from his laptop. He wasn't just selling your old schedules. He was selling Jessica." My blood turned to ice. He sold them her address here in Detroit. Her class schedule. Photos of her. This was planned for weeks. They were always going to take her to get to you. The world tilted. Jimmy. He hadn't just been stupid. He had targeted my sister. If I had not. Antonio started. "If you hadn't eliminated him," I finished, the words tasting like poison, "they would have taken her weeks ago." And I never would have known why. I looked at the maps, the photos, the tactics, the moral high ground I'd been standing on, the self-righteous anger that made me run, it all just crumbled into dust. It was never black and white. This whole time, it was just grey. I understand, I whispered. Hesitation. In your world, hesitation gets people killed. It would have gotten her killed. Yes. I looked up at him. The man I'd run from. The man who had just crossed state lines with an army to save my family. What do you need me to do? His smile was sharp, cold, and proud. Help me get your sister back, Elena. And then, help me end Riccardo Torino. For good. For the next 6 hours, I wasn't a victim. I was a consultant. I helped them profile the guards. I helped plan the infiltration routes, using my knowledge of psychology to predict their reactions. We weren't just going to rescue Jessica. We were going to use the rescue as bait. We were going to lure Riccardo and his new partners into a trap they couldn't escape. One way or another, Antonio said, as his men geared up in the pre-dawn light. This ends tomorrow. I looked at him. My protector. My jailer. My partner. Together, I said. He took my hand. His grip was strong. Together. The golden fork. Midnight. It felt like walking into my own past. It was dark, empty, the tables like white ghosts. I was back in my black uniform. An earpiece was hidden under my hair. My hands were perfectly steady. Remember the plan, Antonio's voice crackled in my ear. You're just Elena. You came in to help with a late-night inventory. Be normal. Be bored. I pushed through the kitchen door. The smell of cold grease and old wine. I walked into the dining room. Riccardo had chosen this place to be poetic. To force Antonio back to where it all began. It was a mistake. He'd chosen my territory. I knew this room better than he ever would. He wasn't alone. 3 men. Sitting at different tables. Trying to look casual. Failing. I saw it instantly. The forced relaxation. The eyes that were too sharp. The way they tracked me. I count 3, main floor, I whispered, straightening a napkin on table 6. 2 more shadows by the kitchen door. They are expecting you to come through the front. Vincent has the back, Antonio's voice replied. Marco has the main. Rodriguez, you are clear on the perimeter. Target acquired. It was Vincent's voice. Cold. Clinical. Jessica Morrison. Northwest corner booth. She's conscious. Restrained. I saw her. Through the service window. Slumped in the booth. His booth. My heart seized. Her eyes were dull from whatever they'd given her, but she was sharp. She was a fighter. She saw me. Her head moved, just a fraction. A nod. She sees me, I breathed. She's aware. Rodriguez, take the perimeter guards. Now, Antonio commanded. Elena. I need eyes on Riccardo. He's here. Find him. I moved. I was the waitress. I checked the wine fridge. I scanned the room. And I saw him. One of Antonio's own men. Standing near the bar. Silvertoe. He'd been with Antonio for years. But he was wrong. His micro-expressions were screaming. Rapid blinking. A tiny, involuntary compression of his lips. He was terrified. Not of a fight. He was terrified of being caught. Antonio, I whispered, my blood running cold. The man at the bar. Silvertoe. He's wrong. He's showing deception markers. Impossible, Antonio hissed. His family. Trust me. Watch his hands. He's tapping his fingers. Self-soothing. His pulse is visible in his neck. He's not ready for combat. He's ready to betray you. I saw it. Through the service window, I saw Antonio's back. And I saw Silvertoe's hand move. Slowly. Guiltily. Toward his jacket. Gun? I hissed. Left side. He's going for a shot. It was like the world exploded. Antonio spun. He moved faster than I thought was humanly possible. Silvertoe's gun fired. The bullet went wide, shattering the huge mirror behind the bar. Before Silvertoe could even correct his aim, Antonio's shot was perfect. Center mass. Silvertoe crumpled. The gunshot was the signal. All hell broke loose. Ricardo's men were up, guns out. But Antonio's team was already moving. They didn't come through the doors. They came from the ceiling vents. From the service tunnels. They came from everywhere. I ran. I didn't run away. I ran through. I used the service corridor. The storage room. The wine cellar. I knew the path. The one that led right behind Jessica's booth. Elena. Status. Antonio's voice was strained. I heard gunfire. Getting Jessica. 30 seconds. I burst out from behind the service station. Jessica's head snapped up. Relief washed over her face. Elena. We're going. The zip ties on her wrists were thick. I grabbed shears from the kitchen prep line. The sound of fighting was everywhere. This way. I hauled her up. Service tunnel. 4 deliveries. It was dark. Cramped. She stumbled, the drug still in her system. But she kept moving. We burst out into the alley behind the deli next door. Vincent was there. An SUV, engine running. Jessica collapsed into the back seat. She's secure, I yelled into my earpiece. Vincent has her. Good, Antonio's voice was tight. Because Ricardo is in the kitchen. With me. I looked back. I saw the flashes of gunfire through the windows. I should have gotten in the car. I should have gone with Jessica. I ran back toward the restaurant. Elena. Get in the car. Vincent yelled. He needs me. I knew the kitchen. I knew its traps. Its blind spots. I went in through the loading dock. I could hear them. Shouting. You took her sister. You made this personal. That was Antonio. She's a weakness. Your obsession with this girl, that's the weakness. That was Ricardo. I peeked around a steel prep table. They were circling each other. The guns were gone. This was primal. Ricardo had a huge kitchen knife. Antonio had grabbed a meat cleaver. It was brutal. Ricardo was fast. But Antonio was precise. He was a surgeon. Ricardo lunged. Antonio caught his wrist. I heard the snap of bone. Antonio didn't hesitate. He brought the cleaver down. Ricardo just dropped. It was over. Antonio stood there, breathing hard, the cleaver still in his hand. He looked up. He saw me. The killer in his eyes vanished. It was just. Antonio. You should be with your sister. She's safe. Vincent has her. Then why are you here? I walked over the mess. I stepped over Ricardo's body. I stopped right in front of him. I could feel the heat coming off him. "This is where it started, isn't it?" I whispered. "In this restaurant. With me serving you wine." I touched his face. It felt right. That it should end here, too. He dropped the cleaver. It hit the tile with a heavy, final sound. His hands, smeared with his enemy's blood, came up to cup my face. "So gentle." "It's not ending, Elena," he said, his voice raw. "It's just beginning." The sirens were close now. But Antonio's cleanup team was already moving through the dining room. "We need to go," he said. He took my hand. Together. I looked at him. The man who had turned my life inside out. The man who had just saved my family. "Together," I said. 2 years later. Everything was different. I stood in a boardroom. Bandini Hospitality Consulting, the sign on the door read. It was a lie. "Mr. Castellaniano," I said, my voice crisp. 6 men in suits sat at the table. "Your micro-expressions, specifically, the involuntary lip compression, indicate deception. You were lying about your gambling debts." The man, 28 and tough, turned pale. He couldn't meet my eyes. Behind the one-way mirror, I knew Antonio was watching. He was listening to my assessment. This was my new job. I wasn't a waitress. I was a profiler. I vetted every new recruit for his family. "Tell me the truth about the debt," I said, my voice softening. "The lie is the problem. Not the debt itself." My phone buzzed. A text from Antonio. "Impressive, Dottoressa. Dinner at home. Don't forget the doctor at 3. I touched my stomach. 4 months. Barely a bump. Our daughter. The Golden Fork was now one of 12 restaurants. They were legitimate. Profitable. And they were perfect, secure hubs for Antonio's other business. I had become his most valuable asset. My psych degree wasn't a party trick. It was a shield. I deflagged 2 traitors and a federal informant in the last year alone. After the meeting, Sophia brought me coffee. "The Torino territory is fully integrated," she reported. "And the Lincoln Park location. The 2 servers. Marco is monitoring them," she said. "Substance abuse. We are handling it. We didn't fire people. We handled them. We offered rehab. We gained loyalty. Or we gathered leverage. It was just business." The doctor's appointment was perfect. A strong heartbeat. A healthy, growing baby girl. Antonio held my hand the entire time. "Have you thought of a name?" the doctor asked. "Isabella," Antonio said, his voice thick. "After my mother." I squeezed his hand. A tribute. A promise. This child, our child, would be protected in a way his mother never was. That night, we were in his study. Our study. "The Santini situation," he said, reviewing a file. "It's resolved. Permanently." I didn't even flinch. Eliminated was just a word. Murder was just a tool. A necessary, cold, business decision to protect our family. To protect Isabella. It had taken time to accept that. To build that new moral compass. But I had. Our wedding was small. Jessica was my maid of honor. She finished her degree. She was working in Detroit. She didn't approve. But she understood. She understood that I'd made a choice to protect her, and that choice had led me here. "I have something for you," Antonio said. He pulled out a small velvet box. Earrings. Sapphires. They were stunning. "They are beautiful. And functional," he said. "They have trackers. Accurate to 3 feet. Waterproof. I put them on. Love and control. Beauty and security. They were a perfect symbol of our life. We lived in a mansion now. A fortress. Walls, cameras, guards. But inside, it was home. He cooked. I had a garden. We were building an empire for our daughter. A legitimate empire, built on the foundations of a criminal one. Any regrets? He asked. He was standing behind me at the window, his arms wrapped around me, his hands resting on my stomach. I thought about the girl I was. The naive, scared waitress. She would have been horrified. She would have run screaming. But she was gone. I looked at our reflection. The crime boss. His psychologist. His wife. And the mother of his child. Isabella kicked, as if she knew. None, I said. And I meant it. I have no regrets at all.